The courtroom doors groaned open, and every head turned. Not because someone important had entered, but because a Marine colonel was standing alone at the defense table, abandoned. No lawyer, no support, no family, just silence. And then a man from the back row stood up, one hand trembling, the other holding a crumpled photograph of his daughter, and said 7 words that would change everything. "I will defend her, even if it costs me everything." Colonel Rebecca Hayes had served 28 years in the United States Marine Corps. She had led battalions through deserts where the horizon burned and through nights where silence screamed louder than gunfire. She had stood firm under enemy fire, buried friends in folded flags, and saluted widows whose faces broke her heart. Yet on that morning, in a quiet civilian courtroom thousands of miles from any battlefield, she had never felt more exposed or more defeated. Her uniform was gone. In its place was a simple navy blue suit, pressed but worn, the kind you buy when you don't expect to need it long. The medals that once lined her chest were now locked away in a drawer that hadn't been opened since the accusation came down. Misconduct, negligence, betrayal of duty, words heavier than any rucksack she had ever carried. The military legal team assigned to her case had withdrawn the night before. Insufficient evidence to continue representation, the email said. No call, no explanation, just a signature she didn't recognize. By morning, even the junior officers who once sought her advice avoided her eyes in the hallway. She stood alone. Across the room, whispers spread like a disease. The media benches were half full. They loved stories like this, fallen heroes, disgraced officers. To them, she was already guilty. To the court, she was just another case number waiting to be processed. Rebecca had prepared herself for prison, for humiliation, for losing everything she had built since the age of 18. But what she hadn't prepared for was the loneliness, the kind that seeps into your bones and convinces you that maybe you really aren't worth saving. The judge cleared his throat. "Colonel Hayes, do you have legal representation?" Rebecca swallowed. Her voice, once sharp enough to command hundreds, barely rose above a whisper. "No, Your Honor." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The judge frowned. "This is a serious charge. Without counsel, the consequences will be severe." Rebecca nodded. She had survived worse, or so she told herself. That's when the chair scraped against the floor. In the back row sat a man no one had noticed before. Early 40s, broad shoulders slumped by exhaustion. A faded jacket, work boots scuffed at the toes. He wasn't military anymore, but he carried himself like someone who once had been. His hair was trimmed short, his face lined not by age but by responsibility. His name was Daniel Carter, a single father, a former Army sergeant, a man who hadn't planned to speak that day. Daniel had only come to court because he couldn't afford to miss work again. He drove trucks at night, slept during the day, and raised his daughter alone since his wife died of cancer 3 years earlier. He was there for a minor custody paperwork issue, nothing more. But while waiting, he overheard the charges against Colonel Hayes, and something inside him cracked. He remembered her. Not personally, but professionally. Years earlier, overseas, when his convoy was ambushed and command froze, it was Colonel Hayes who broke protocol, rerouted air support, and saved his unit. Saved his life. That decision had later been questioned, reviewed, nearly punished. Now, years later, someone had buried it under paperwork and twisted it into criminal intent. Daniel looked down at the photo in his hand. His daughter, Emily, smiling without knowing how close he'd once come to never coming home. And before fear could stop him, before logic could warn him of consequences, he stood. "I will defend her," he said, his voice shaking but loud enough. "Even if I'm not supposed to." The room froze. The judge stared at him. "Sir, are you a licensed attorney?" Daniel swallowed. "No, Your Honor. But I am alive because of her." Gasps followed. Rebecca turned for the first time, disbelief flooding her tired eyes. Daniel stepped forward, heart pounding. "She saved my unit. She saved my daughter's father. And if the system is willing to discard her without a fight, then it's broken. I won't let her stand alone." The judge hesitated. Rules weighed against justice in his eyes. Rebecca whispered, "You don't have to do this." Daniel met her gaze. "Someone once did it for me." And in that moment, the case stopped being about law and became about loyalty. The days that followed were brutal. Daniel wasn't allowed to act as formal counsel, but he fought relentlessly, filing motions, digging through public records at night while his daughter slept beside him on the couch. He used every contact he had left from the service, every favor he had never dared ask for. Emily would wake up to find him at the kitchen table, eyes red, papers spread like battle maps. "Daddy, are you going to lose your job?" she asked one morning. Daniel forced a smile. "Maybe, but sometimes doing the right thing costs something." Rebecca watched all of this with quiet awe and growing guilt. "You're risking your child's future for mine," she told him one evening. Daniel shook his head. "No, I'm teaching her what justice looks like." Evidence began to surface. Orders altered after the fact. Command decisions pinned on one officer to protect higher ranks. A pattern, ugly and deliberate. The courtroom shifted from accusation to scrutiny. Witnesses who once refused to speak found courage in Daniel's presence. Not because he was powerful, but because he was real. A father, a veteran, someone with nothing to gain. The prosecution's story unraveled thread by thread. On the final day, the judge leaned forward. "Colonel Hayes, the court finds insufficient evidence of wrongdoing. All charges dismissed." Rebecca didn't cry. She stood straighter than she had in months and saluted. Not the judge, not the flag, but Daniel. The gallery erupted. Outside, cameras flashed, but Daniel shielded Emily's eyes. "We're going home," he said quietly. Rebecca caught up to him. Her voice broke for the first time. "I don't know how to repay you." Daniel looked at his daughter, then back at her. "Live. Keep protecting people. That's enough." Weeks later, Rebecca returned to service, this time as a reform advocate. Policies changed. Careers were saved. Daniel went back to driving trucks, back to packed lunches and bedtime stories. But every year, on the date of the trial, Emily would ask, "Daddy, is today the day you defended the soldier?" Daniel would smile. "No, sweetheart. Today is the day we defended what was right." And the truth echoed quietly through time. Real heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they sit in the back row until it's time to stand.